Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerdy Affair, where we take our wizard from the coast and pair them up with our saucy pop culture media setting. I'm Cody.
Ooh, and I'm Joe. That was nice. I liked that.
Y- Yeah,
Hey, Cody, how have you
big
been?
brain. I've been good. How have you been?
Oh, I've been all right. Excited to be here and meet our lovely contestants for our little game today.
Yeah,
Our little talk. You know what, Cody?
yeah,
Looking at our pop culture media figure, it reminds me of a story from my
yeah.
youth.
Ooh, okay, hit me.
Yeah, you know what, Cody? When I was a young boy, my
Oh no.
father took me to the city to see a marching band. He said,
Oh,
"Son, when you grow
I did.
up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?" That really stuck with me
I
right here in the old noodle,
right
Cody.
here in the old heart on your sleeve, huh?
Yep, yep.
What a if you took I would have stopped. I would have stopped you if you told me you were gonna sing the first part of Black Parade. But now I'm so happy that you did. It's like, yeah. My Chemro is a guilty pleasure of mine.
Of course, obviously.
Yeah,
Who
as it
isn't?
should be for most people who grew up in the '90s.
Yeah. It's weird. It's one of those deals where I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of them in the moment, but now it's like a very comforting, nostalgic music for me, where I'm just like,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah, I remember being young."
yes, I remember. I remember my rebellious youth.
So, Cody, do you wanna introduce our pop culture, um, phenom,
Icon.
icon, whatever?
Yeah, it all works. Yeah. So we are going to hook up our lonely wizard with Umbrella Academy.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
how
with the
how on brand.
I know. With Umbrella Academy season 2 coming out, I could not talk about this.
Yeah.
Uh, I really loved that second season, so yeah,
Mm,
we definitely came into this with the idea like let's so for formatting's sake, um, we're coming to the table with some neat hacks and mechanics that kind of work in favor for Dungeons and Dragons, our lonely wizard. But we're also going to talk about some GM kind of pitfalls to avoid and some other things. But let's start with the cool, fun mechanics. Those are always
yeah.
really good.
Well, hey,
Uh,
can I just do just a bit about why I think Umbrella Academy is a cool thing that I would
oh yeah,
like to
100%.
participate in? Okay, so
Wh-
here's the thing about Umbrella Academy. I've not actually read the
Yeah,
comic, but when I saw the trailer for this show, I think I might have said this before on this program, but when I saw the trailer for the first time on Netflix, my eyes rolled so hard I thought they were gonna break in my brain
they just
because
shattered.
I was like, like, man, it seemed like it was such a been there, done that kinda thing, where it
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
it definitely felt like it was just treading the same area as Watchmen and all the other
mhm,
gritty, all heroes are bad kind of.
or even, like, just the idea of, like, "Hey, did you know that if you were raised as a super kid in a superhero school, you're gonna end up a messed up adult?" And it's man, the X-Men have been doing that, and for,
Yeah,
like,
and they've
a
been doing that
while
for
now,
yeah, for years. I mean,
and
shit, I grew up with X-Men cartoons, and I know the comics were out way before that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, but it's like so like when the X-Men first started, it was all very like pomp and circumstance and like superheroes are fun. And then at like some point in like the 80s and the 90s, it started becoming like, hey, it's kind of messed up that as like students and children at a school, our teacher was like, you should probably go fight these monsters. And it's like, yeah, it is kind of messed up if you think about it.
Yeah,
Um,
training them to set like to fight crime,
but like,
become masked vigilantes.
yeah, it's kind of a bizarre thing. But as I was talking to a friend about it, he was like, yeah, man, like, but if there's one person out there who's going to take that and ascend it to it's going to be the king of, like the edgy teen in all of us, Gerard Way. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
a
that's
hundred
so
percent.
correct." Like, that's the most correct thing you've ever said. But anyway, it's something that I thought was really cool because it seemed like it was always just, like, bigger than the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
and in a way that I ended up, enjoying quite a lot. So, you wanna hit us with your first fun little game hack?
Yeah. So the general core concept is leaning into flaws, but we're going to call this mechanic the flaw die. So
Mm.
Umbrella Academy is about, if we break it down into the sum of its parts, it's about stopping the apocalypse, and that's a big part of the show, but it explores superhero archetypes and really gets into their flaws, whether it's physically or mentally. Like every one of those characters is fucked up in their own way, and and for most of them it's super unique to them. And if you really want to play Umbrella, like if you want that vibe, if you want My Chem Row to really like get into that game, want to seep into the roots and really suck up all that like teen angst energy, leaning into flaws is how you're going to do that. And the problem with that, with D&D 5th edition, is yeah, there are mechanics to do that, but by default it's a game. And whether we try to unprogram ourselves from that concept or not, you want to win. So a lot of times what happens, especially with new players or players who are like just kind of getting into it, like they're not worried about like developing deep emotions or like trying to incorporate their flaws to create an interesting tale. So I figured if you make the flaws a mechanical advantage, like really leaning into them, that can really help get that kind of like moody, gritty edginess that shows up in Umbrella Academy. So the idea is that flaws should obviously give you points or bonuses if the player feeds into it, causing issues for an individual or the party as a whole. Ultimately, these flaws get in the way. While this mechanic is in D&D, we're changing it up. The flaw die is a limitless pool of die, and you get a die in this pool every time your flaw hurts another player or the party as a whole. It would work similar to Bardic Inspiration, but could be communal and used for any role rather than just the person who acquired the flaw. So the idea is if you really want someone to do something super or heroic, if you play into these flaws and really kind of put yourself in the shit, you're going to get a bunch of these. And my suggestion is probably like either D8s or D12s, depending on how much you want them to sway the role. But the idea is that while they're playing into these flaws, they're going to be getting these D8s and these D12s, and they can use those to in conjunction with their D20 whenever they're making a roll. So like, ooh man, there's this really difficult challenge. Like this guy's or like the strong man of the group has to leap over a huge chasm to get to the other side to like stop the bad guy. Well, that's going to be like a DC 18, and that's pretty rough, especially if you're like a low level character. But just earlier, there was a scene that put them in this position in the first place because another character was a was like kind of egotistic and didn't want the rest of the people to help, and it put them in this position. Now they've got a D8 or a D12 or something to add to that role to get them over that chasm. For balancing purposes, I think the flaws need to be brought to the table and discussed and agreed upon beforehand to make sure the flaws are worth getting these extra die. Like these flaws should be detrimental. Like they should be pretty crippling's not the right word, but they should have some heaviness to them. They should have some heft. And I think for balancing sake, I probably wouldn't allow this die with certain other mechanics that also give you additional die, just because that might start to get into very weird territories. But that is the flaw die, a limitless pool of every time you do something that really fucks everyone over because you're a egotistical maniac, helps the other players out.
Very cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I mentioned this in our Kids on Bikes episode, but I think it's interesting how more systems are kind of building in mechanics to reward failure.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's a neat idea and one that I think that I would be curious to see how it plays out. But um, one of the things that I thought about when developing a pitch for the Umbrella Academy is how to capture the idea of like multiple genres with one cohesive story.
Yeah.
And so one of the things about Umbrella Academy is this idea that you know it's pretty successful at combining multiple genres, if you will, into kind of one big overarching narrative. So you have, characters like Diego, who is a almost like Nightwing style street level hero. You have Five, who's a time traveling assassin. You have Klaus, who's kind of like this psychedelic, trippy guy. Allison is a sort of gossip girl, teen pop celebrity gone wrong. Um, Luther is, kind of like a golden boy who has kind of lost some of the shine, and is dealing with the fact that he might not be the leader and the Superman he thought he was. And then of course Vanya is kind of sad, but also going down a darker path. But I think that one of the things is that it lets all of these characters use their respective set talents and skills in kind of following this one central mystery. Um, so in this sense, creating a sort of playbook or feat style system that rewards the different kind of genres of comics that is talked about in at the beginning of the event. So, for instance, like in the case of Diego, he has street level informants that he can take advantage of, or um, his connection to the authorities, even though they think he's kind of like a crazy person. Um, if there's and uh, I say too that you can expand this further. So I have a character from like a horror genre of comics that they could have a unique weapon or an ability to piece together conspiracies, um, things along those lines. In an adventure comic, you might have the ability to find or evade traps, or knowledge of the arcane artifacts of the world, or things like that. Umbrella Academy doesn't necessarily go too far down that pathway, but there are plenty of genres out there, and if you sit down with your players and you kind of give them these playbooks that they can put on top of an already existing D&D character, um, it will create situations where each of them can kind of step in and use their personal skill sets to advance the story and advance the mystery. Part of that too is creating a situation that would be appealing to disparate genres of characters. In this case, I think you have a built-in nice thing that these characters are all siblings; they're all related to one another, which kind of all helps them on that central push. Um, and so yeah, that was kind of like the big idea is that it's making a game that feels like you're combining a lot of different genres into kind of one overarching mystery or story. So
Nice. And why don't you hit us with the third kind of mechanic, and then I'll go over some kind of things to think about as a GM while running these kind of things.
sounds great. Yeah. So my other thing is creating sort of the villain of the series, which is a high knowledge but not all knowing opponent. So the major threat of the Umbrella
Mm.
Academy is the Temps Commission, which is an organization of time travelers and assassins that are have the main goal of trying to keep the timeline safe. Um, and so basically, because of this, one of the things that makes them unique is that while they're knowledgeable, um, they're knowledgeable. They have a kind of like an understanding of where the characters are, or what they might be going to do. They are not all knowing. There's lots of situations where the assassins are given a piece of information maybe a teeny bit too late to like truly um, jump in ahead of time. But there are also moments where they show up at a moment where they can really mess stuff up. Um, and so basically, what I've developed is a kind of mechanical thing where early on in your campaign, let's say this is like a one shot. Early on in this session, have your characters in a situation where these time assassins show up and mess with the team, meddle with the team in a way of your determining. But basically, introduce the idea early on that there is an organization that can show up at any point at any time and impede your group's progress and their ability to solve the situations. So with your powers, your team should be okay, but this is more designed to put them on edge because from that point forward, um, your assassins will be making checks to see how prepared they are for the plan of the party. So it would be a d20 roll on a 1 to 6. The party's plan goes with off without interference from the commission at all. It just kind of works. 6 to 11, um, the the plan works, but the commission sends some light interference. Maybe they get the information first. The person they're looking for is dead. They've set up a trap or a an explosion or something along those lines in such a place that um, kind of gets in the way. The next threshold after that is the commission is ready for you, and the encounter becomes more difficult. Or on the highest rolls, like let's say 17 to 20, the top agent shows up, and things become pretty dire for your party. Um, Sort of like high level um, uh, assassins. And so,
Nice.
because this is a random occurrence, your party's going to have to plan for the inevitability that they will never be 100% sure like what will be waiting for them when they arrive. This helps to build tension into every plan. Um, and I think one of the things too is that it's like Umbrella Academy is kind of more about personal interpersonal relationships instead of crazy actions. So if you have this threat that can kind of pop up whenever, wherever, it maybe sows seeds of distrust amongst the party or self doubt about, well, hey, we can't do it that way because what if those asses from the time traveling bureau are going to be there waiting for us, and that can help create a little bit of tension in the party as well, especially with that flaw system like Cody
Yeah.
created. I don't know what word I was going for, but it didn't come out.
Yeah, yeah, these are great mechanics. I think we're on the right track. I think I think from this point, I'll talk about kind of the pitfalls of saying, hey, we're gonna do an Umbrella Academy game,
Mm,
or what things to look out for, or things like, suggestions from like a DM perspective, like what makes for not only the feel of Umbrella Academy, but makes it easier for you, because at the end of the day, you're also playing the game. So too much stress for yourself, you're not going to want to make these things, right?
mhm,
So in Umbrella Academy, there's one big thing that happens in the show that doesn't transfer over very well to tabletop role playing games, and that is that the heroes are almost never in the same room at the same time. In fact, a
mm,
lot of the show is they're all dealing with their own thing and they all kind of come up at the end. Some characters kind of convene at certain areas, and there are times where they're together, but what do you do in that situation where, there's going to be a lot of like, especially if they are a strength, their relationship is, varied because they have difficult backstories. How do you deal with this? Now, the first initial thing is, if you're really good as a game master with shifting the spotlight between people, you can just play each scene out one after another, making sure not to dwell too long or bore your other players. But in my experience, this is super difficult. And depending on the size of your party or the people that are playing, um, that can be super difficult. But You can also offer narrative questions at key moments to the other players who are not involved. You'll have to be quick with your brain to pull this off, but players can be a great source of conflict, and they can interact with scenes that they aren't a part of.
Mhm.
While on paper this might be the easiest solution, it is difficult to shift the spotlight. So yeah, having players come in, having other players who are not part of the scene come in and maybe offer little bits of like, so like like this is in I believe it's called 13 Candles. I could be wrong. But there's a mechanic where everyone offer like when something bad happens, everyone offers a piece of information that is fundamentally true
Mm.
to a scene. In this case, you can ask during like maybe a scene's playing out a little longer. Maybe you ask the players like, "Hey, everyone else at the table, who runs into her at this exact moment?" Now you've got the players being like, "Ooh, what's something really cool that we can put right here to really like throw things for a loop." Um, Another idea which wouldn't work for a one night event like a game night, but if you were to do like a long form of this, you could do a series of one-on-one sessions to kind of explore in the same way that Umbrella Academy did, doing one-on-one sessions to explore flaws, backstories, general drama in their lives, and then when there is a natural point in the game for people to come together, that's when you have game night, right?
Mhm.
um this takes a bit of prep work, and obviously you need to figure out how to deal with the fact that sometimes the narrative kind of weaves in and out of other players and stuff like that, and planning and scheduling, but could make for a very interesting short-term campaign that turns into a really cool big blowout one shot that could be really fun. Like
Mhm.
maybe the story is that like they're all working on this, they all found out in a very different way, but then they all kind of reconvene when the time is right, or when they know that everyone's going to be together. So that's one of the pitfalls to worry about, is playing in a game where the heroes are not in the same room can be kind of challenging.
Sure.
And then my personal favorite thing to talk about is where slash when you should play in this universe. So I've done this in a couple of the other ones, and I got two ideas. I'll try to keep it short and sweet for both of them.
Okay.
I think if you're really sold on the setting, you can have it take place before or after the events of season 1 and 2. There could be a really cool way to see the end of the kind of golden age for the Umbrella Academy, or perhaps a postseason romp through time as they go and try to fix another apocalypse in another time period. You could do the, oh, without any spoilers, they teleport through time and they're all in shit, I don't know the exact year, but like they all happen to be in Germany, and they got to kill Hitler.
Mhm.
Like you can do time traveling bits for all sorts of points in history where they all kind of plop up somewhere, and you can really kind of go nuts with that. Um, However, that being said, as much as I like Umbrella Academy, I think it would be fun and unique to create the same vibe, right? That gritty, like training children to be superheroes and then finding out that's not necessarily a great idea. But having it set in a different world. You can borrow the same concepts and the people, or instill the same ideas. There maybe keep the time bureau, keep certain parts, but give room for your players to add to the world themselves. We sort of scratched the surface on this in the character creation of the one shot, but offering to give the players questions like, how does the world remember the new Umbrella Academy, and what was the last thing you did to deserve that recognition? If you give that to the players, you can create a whole new story and a whole new spin on this whole superhero concept. Another one is, why does the party dislike their parent or parents? You know, like you might change the way the and I'm blanking on his name at the moment. Who is the father?
Shoot. I want to say Niles, but that's Doom Patrol. Reginald. Reginald
Reginald.
Margrave.
Yeah, so maybe have the party decide why they don't like him. Maybe he isn't, maybe it's something different, right? Like he is kind of an asshole or super asshole, let's be honest. But maybe the party can put a unique spin on that. Or what villain or villainous organization got away from the party? Once you ask a series of these questions, you can really begin to fit together a really cool one shot or even start a bigger campaign that the players can be invested in because they helped create the world.
Okay.
Um, you can create your own custom, gritty, post Golden Age superhero group, but make it unique to the party and ask them questions and, maybe maybe change the superpowers. Maybe everyone's got a different set of superpowers or whatever. Um, I'm personally a fan of evoking the same feels and like the same ideas, but changing the script a little bit so that it's unique to your party or a unique perspective on that. Because we could just play Umbrella Academy, but like we already know what happens in that. I want to see
That's true.
I want to see a fresh take on that.
Yeah. Okay,
And
Cody. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Do you have another point? I'm sorry.
no, those are my 2 points: is narrative spotlight and when/where you should play.
Because I'm going to throw in a hand grenade.
Oh, I like it. Well, maybe I don't like a hand grenade, but
I
I
want
don't
to
know.
ask you. It's a disrupting thing that I want to throw in. I want to get your
Yeah.
thought on an idea that I had while we were recording.
Yes.
What would your take be on one of the players being a secret villain? To give a
Ooh.
little bit of context, in the at least the first season of the Umbrella Academy, one of the characters is revealed about I would say 2/3 of the way through the season that she is a little bit more she is villainous, not necessarily through any fault of her own. It's just that she's kind of been manipulated by certain individuals in her life and things like that over the years. But what would you think about making one of your players in the party a secret villain?
This is tough. You have to be really careful because you're setting a very flimsy or tightrope uh principle to your game.
Hmm.
Um because on one hand, if everybody's cool with each other and they know that like it's very well like I guess I would preface that I would probably inform the players without giving anything away
Hmm.
that things amongst your group are not what they seem.
Yeah,
To let them know that like, hey, there is a chance that someone stabs you in the back because nothing is shittier than players working together and leaving themselves exposed only to have the villain like take advantage of that and like kill a character. Because I've
sure.
been on that side of the spectrum before where somebody like dicked over the party in a one shot and like it sucked. So like you kind of have to be careful, but I think if you're playing with friends who are comfortable with like that concept and you let people know ahead of time like hey, some things are not as they seem, then I think it could work and I think it could be really fun. But springing that and surprising a table with that often leads to a semi shitty experience depending on how well the villain did.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I wouldn't necessarily make them like the focal point of
sure.
it. I think I would still make the Time Bureau the major threat. And I think that I would, if this was going to be a sustained campaign, I would advise against it.
Yeah,
Um
100%. I mean, you can have characters that are like inherently evil by design or whatever. It's just you because of the way party dynamics and party games work like this, you want if you're going to go down this route, you need a reason to want to work with the heroes. Like cuz if you are the
mhm.
reason that everything always falls apart, it's going to be unfun for everybody except for one person very quickly.
Yeah.
But
I
that being
suppose
said,
that's the thing, right?
yeah,
Is
like
if you pass out like 6 pieces of paper and one of them has red on it. The
It's true. Yeah, you could do that. Like select one person at random,
Yeah, yeah.
or it could be a surprise to everybody.
Ooh.
There's an option right there. It's like, yeah, so things are not as they seem, and at some point I'm going to reveal information about one of you that you may not like.
Mhm.
And maybe that's it. Maybe it's like, hey, by the way, you were secretly suppressed and tortured for years by the very people that you've been living with for
And then
whatever reason.
it doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to end up a villain. It's just how do you handle that situation? How do you handle this
Exactly.
moment?
And granted, this is one of those things we are treading very interesting territory. So I would always, always, always ask your players if they are cool with this concept, because some people might be. I know I would. If I knew I was going into a one shot where one of us was the villain, I'd be like, fuck yeah. But not everybody's into that. So play with caution on that one.
Yeah. I just realized it was a major thing about Umbrella Academy that I hadn't personally thought of, and I wanted your take to see how
Yeah.
you would handle that situation.
Well, you know what? I see our couple over yonder, and they seem to have hit it off on some street justice, if you will.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they
Well,
found a villain in a masked attire, and they're really going to town. It's ooh, should we stop them or?
let them have fun. I'm
All
sure we'll see
right.
our wizard next time. Hey Cody,
Yeah,
if people like this episode and they wanted to learn more, where's the place that they can learn more?
they could go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where you can see all the shows that we're doing, including the streams that I do personally during the week. You can also scroll all the way down. And if you have a saucy pop culture media setting that you'd like us to tackle and hack and talk about the pitfalls so that you can run it yourself, you can fill out the form at the bottom of our website.
And hey Cody, if people want to share this episode with a friend, but they don't necessarily use the same podcatcher app that they use,
Mm-hmm.
where are some places people can find episodes of Fandom Roulette?
We are on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, you name it, Stitcher. Um, all you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
Uh, and if there are people who want to engage with us on various social media platforms, where are some places people can find us to send us memes or thoughts or other things like that?
You can go to our Twitter at fandomr_podcast, where we post all updates about what we're up to, whether it's a new episode that's going live or when I'm streaming. You can find out information there. And if you're looking for memes, screams, and I wanted to do a trains, planes, automobiles thing, but I lost myself at the end there. But if you're looking to post pictures or just chat with us, we're also on Facebook and Instagram. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
Also, please remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe.
Yeah,
Hit the bell, all of that stuff.
yeah. Help us move up the ranks.
Yeah, exactly. Leave a comment, send it to a friend, because we know that there are lots of podcasts out there, and we want to spend. Thank you for spending time with us and seeing what
Yeah,
we do.
thanks.
Um, so, hey, anything else, Cody? Are we good?
I think we're good. Just thanks
Oh,
everybody for
yeah,
listening, and I hope that your next game night has some really fun Umbrella Academy shenanigans.
yeah. Um, and signing off for Fandom Roulette. This is Joe,
And I'm Cody.
and as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.